remember closing my eyes and just taking a deep breath like this. And as I breathed in or breathed out, just my spirit, my soul left. I could feel myself lifting up and out. And I can remember like going, oh, this feels fabulous. I'm not in any pain.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I'll stay here. I'll stay in this spot for a while. And then I started floating up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And I came to a spot that was like just all white.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today I have Debra Martin with us. She is an intuitive healer and medium, and she's also had 3 near-death experiences. So we're going to have a conversation around that and the other things she's doing in her life. So thank you so much, Debra, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
I always start everybody with the same beginning, and it is the beginning. It's your beginning. And I try to ask a little bit about who little Debra was. I go back kind of to the beginning. So I don't know yet when your near death experiences happened. I've kind of, as I said earlier before we started recording here, I did reach out to you. So there was something that channeled me to do that, or I seen something that interested me. But I don't know when it happened yet. But if we could go back to maybe just who you were as a person, as a child, and to just know if you were similar to the way you are now, or what kind of child you were growing up. If I get a little information on that.
That's a really good question because it all started when I was a child.
Mm.
And back when I was around 4 years old, I started seeing spirit when I would lay in bed to sleep. And I can remember yelling down the stairs, like, can I come downstairs? And it was because I was frightened. They're like, no, Deborah, go back to bed, right?
Mm.
It wasn't something that you would talk about. And I was really frightened by it. And so I would just see their faces. And then I would kind of tone into like, what's your name? Like that. What's your name? And I'd hear like Joe, right? And he'd just go Joe, Joe, Joe. And I'd go to my dresser here and I'd start carving the first letter of that name to take my vision away from this. And so it was like, I'm not gonna pay attention to you. I'm over here.
Mm.
And hope that they would go away. They were never there to scare me, but it did scare me because it was so out of the norm and it wasn't talked about. And I never talked about it. Okay.
Wow.
So years later, now at my age now, I look back and I'm like, oh, they were just my guides. They were there to say, hello. I want you to meet me.
Hmm.
And I was not ready at all. Mm-mm.
Wow. It sometimes makes me wonder when I hear a beginning to someone's story or life story like that. You know, you hear about kids who say they have imaginary friends, right? And so many people will kind of, oh, it's your little friend Rebecca, your little friend whatever. And it makes you wonder how many of those kids were actually talking to someone or how many of those children were seeing something. I believe that's probably the case many times,
100%. I do.
right?
Hmm.
Because you were doing the same thing. Did this affect you? I only ask this, I'm kind of selfishly asking this because this is the way I was. Did this affect you in like school, around your peers, in respect to, did you feel a little bit different in any way than everyone else, or did you kind of just fit in with everyone?
I fit in with everyone, but I would say I was very sensitive to people
Hmm.
without knowing it. I was sensitive to light too. They had really strong fluorescent lights in the schools. And for some reason, that made it really hard for me to concentrate. And I was like, why am I having this issue? And I never expressed it, but it was the energy coming from it. And it was the energy around
Mm.
other people. And I was taking it all in, not even knowing it. And it was a distraction, but I fit in, but I wasn't like the most popular because
Mhm.
I was kind of like standing back and watching all the different groups, right? And
Yes.
maybe I could fit into that one and I can be friends with that one and kind of be friends with everybody, but it wasn't just either or.
Hmm. And that's exactly what I was alluding to. I've said it on multiple episodes, and you probably don't know this if you haven't seen them yet. I don't know, but I used to look around and see these kids and wonder why are they being mean to each other, or and same kind of thing. I'd wonder which group I should be part of, and I'd kind of like move. I wasn't unpopular. I was actually kind of popular because I was popular with everybody, but I didn't stick with one thing. And I was also a
Right.
sensitive kid. So I can relate to that. I was curious just because I sometimes see that people who, have utilized their gifts or had NDEs at some time in their life, if they look back, sometimes there is more of that shown I see that as kind of a pattern. So I don't know when the first experience you had was, but so you're saying you saw spirit as a child. You also seem to have a sensitivity to energy. So that was already happening young. Did that progress into your adolescence and young adulthood? Is
No,
that
I turned it completely off. I think it was just fear. Shut that door, don't want anything to do with it,
right?
and just live my life without it at all.
Right. So you turn from it probably in the not a fear, but the idea of this is different. And I had the same thing. I'd say things to my friends, and they'd say, "No, I'm not. That didn't happen. That's not happening to me." I'd say some of the strangest things. Looking back now, I think those were spirit inspired things I was doing. Whether it was closing my eyes and seeing colors around people's faces, or I was doing just different things that people were like, What are you talking about?" Right? And so the more I would get that kind of feedback from my friends, I thought, okay, I'm either really strange. I've got to stop this, like, and so I'd stop in and I just got into sports and kind of did the same kind of thing, just kind of went down the life path, right? So you do
Uh,
that to fit in, to this is what you're meant to do next, and those types of things.
well, you can't really have a conversation with anyone because they're not
Right.
going to talk to you back. So, because they don't understand, so you just kind of hold it inside,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the beautiful things as to why I turned to music, though. Music gave me that outlet. That's why I love the arts for kids, and it gives them expressive creativity. And I don't know if you got involved with that or not, but it does give them at least something they can kind of use while they're experiencing these things, right? Instead of it being just something that's looked at different. So,
Yeah, I do see that now, but I didn't see it then. I mean, I turned it off when I said I turned it off. It was like,
yeah.
even come near me.
Wow. So your childhood was were you around religious aspects of anything when you were a child? Did you have any kind of religious upbringing or anything like that?
That's interesting too, because I never was just one. So my father was Catholic, my mother was Protestant. We'd go to both. But then my neighbors were different. They were Methodist, they were Lutheran. And I just wanted to go to all of them. I
Mm,
wanted to see what they were all about. Like, well, why does this religion, why do they have to go every Sunday and, they have to take, their blessing? And why do some kneel, some don't? And I really kind of had this sense of, okay, it's not about the act of what we're doing. It's whether or not you're sitting and being present and feeling. So it
mm,
didn't matter. So I was really kind of looking at a church almost like schools. I was going into these different schools to see what they were going to teach me, what they were going to give to me. And sometimes I would go, this doesn't feel right. I'm not getting anything from it. Other times I would find like I'd open up, I'd start saying things to like the priest, and where are you getting this? I'm going to have to like look it up and study and come back. Like I was almost being their teacher. It was coming through
mm,
me. So it's very interesting how that kind of played out because I think it was coming through with me. I knew it was coming through me, but I didn't acknowledge it as that. But I loved it because I was saying things that was making people go, huh?
mm,
What? Wow.
right.
And so I was starting to have a little voice there, but I never told them where it was coming. But it did teach me that, all religions, whatever religion you are, if it fits for you, that's fine. I mean, we're
Hmm.
all learning to connect with the highest divine, and whichever way that works, that's great.
So you were kind of a little bit of a philosopher. You're more of a in the philosophy than religion. You were kind of trying to look and discover what made sense to you. I've always said, we have different feedback that comes on this show because of the NDEs and everything. And sometimes it's people that are more on the religious side, spiritual side, and some people will have opinions of both sides. And that's fine. I respect people's opinions. Everyone should have them. Um, I would say though, a beautiful thing about a religious, upbringing or anything that I didn't have one myself, but is community, is the sense of community, you know. I mean, most religions have that piece of it. There's a lot of things that are terrible that go on. I think a lot of us already know that now. But we don't, I not that I want to argue with the fact that we should, but I just think that we don't want to go too as far as to say that religion shouldn't exist or, because that's what we labeled our belief systems, that we called it a religion. And so it was a way for us to have something higher than us that we're going after or looking towards, right? So in that sense, most of them are the same. So
I feel
yeah.
that way. I feel like it's finding your faith. How do
Mm,
you find your faith? How do you find that connection? And some people just might never find the connection. They just might feel like, okay, I have the connection because I'm there. They're doing the connection for me.
mm,
But I would go to that extra step to try to feel it. And I believe that no matter, like I said, what religion you are, and I'm more spiritual, I don't go to a church,
mm,
but I do see other friends that do. And you're right, they do have that community to lean on,
mm.
right? They have somebody that has their back, that's there for them in times of crisis. For me, my faith is so strong. I feel like in times of crisis, it's around me.
Right. Right. So you had an awareness.
Yes.
It seems like you had a deeper awareness as a child, clearly. And I'm wondering how we got there. Did the, spiritual sense of you start to awaken more in like maybe your early 20s or your adulthood, or when did the first experience happen? I guess we can lead into that.
Yeah, the first experience happened with my first NDE. And so I was a single mom of three, and I happened to go out with a couple of girlfriends. We were going out to dinner, but they had like TVs, in the restaurant. And it was the same night that Princess Diana had her car accident.
Oh, wow.
And so if you can remember where you were, everything stopped, you're watching, and you're really in tune to what's going on. So when it was time to leave, I was supposed to get into the back seat of a two-door sports car. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to get into this car.
Mm,
And my girlfriends are like, Deborah, you're just feeling the energy of what happened to Princess Diana. She has kids, you have kids. Just get in the car. Well, at that time, I didn't even know what a premonition was, right? So I got into the car and we went on the freeway driving home, and it was late at night. And we were in the slow lane. And I can remember as if I was talking in my mind, like I knew something was going to happen. And how I knew that, I do not know. But I knew we were going to be hit by another car.
mm,
And so it's like the downloads here, I'm talking, you're going to be hit by another car. And I'm like, no, no, not now. Like, I'm a mother of three. And at that same moment that I said, no, not now, we hit impact. And it was a big van that didn't have any windows on the side. He came from the
right.
fast lane and he clipped us. And we took out 40 feet of guardrail and we came spinning to facing oncoming traffic. Now, I have pictures in my book, Proof of Miracles, of the car. We shouldn't have survived. It's crunched. And we can't get out. And I'm in this little bit of pocket in the back seat of the car. And all of a sudden somebody appeared and they opened the car door like, oh, just easy. And I was like, how did he do that? And he lifted each one of us. He carried each one of us to the embankment. And he looked at me and he said, you're going to be okay. Now, I wore this ring because I was hoping to share it, but this ring is it's a really hard metal ring.
Hmm.
I it was crushing my finger, and my finger was bleeding. And I said, can you just help me get this ring off my finger? So he took it and placed it in his mouth. And I do have his teeth marks on there. You can barely see it
Oh,
right
wow.
there.
I can see it. Yeah.
But it proves that he was real.
Hmm.
So as he did that, he kissed me on the forehead. He said, you will be fine. He went to the left. I looked to the right because there was a lot of ambulances, fire trucks, everybody's coming in. The van was now flipped into the embankment upside down. So now I'm looking at the van and I looked to my left and he was gone.
Mm,
And no one could say that he was there. No one could remember seeing him. I asked police officers, where was he? Was there another car there? Where was this person? No one. So that kind of opened my door of what just happened. And I started attending like afterlife conferences, tapping into what exists beyond here. And I came to terms that it was divine intervention. I asked and it came to me. And that just opened my whole door of, whoa, there's more to this.
mm.
And as I was attending the conferences, things were starting to open up. I was starting to hear a little bit, but I wasn't saying too much to anybody yet. I was just feeling it out. So that opened my door to
Wow.
everything and all.
So that, yeah, and that would be definitely, it's definitely a near-death experience. You could have left at that time. And it seemed so sometimes, when people explain what's happened, kind of I recollect what you've said. And to my beautiful audience out there, it's not always for them to, I'm not trying to say it again so that because they don't understand what you're saying. I'm doing it for me to understand again.
Yes, yes,
So to be clear, you were in this car, you had an intuition that something was going to happen. You've seen it visually, you may have had whichever come to you, and then it happened. You had two other people, passengers in the car with you,
correct.
and the three of you were taken out by this
Divine
intervention. Could be divine
being.
angel, whatever we want to call it. This person, this entity that helped you all three out. The other two passengers, do they recall this happening?
Yes, they do. The driver broke her leg, so she couldn't get out without somebody carrying her. And the other passenger that was in the front seat, um, her seatbelt broke into me, and she was really having a hard time. She's like, "What just happened? Oh my gosh!" She was in shock, but she remembers him kissing her on the forehead, saying the exact same words he said to me.
Wow. So this is where I get really fascinated because when I was a teenager and I started getting to NDEs, I started getting books and reading books of people. So, and I don't even remember half of them that I read because I was 17 or 18.
Mhm.
And I recall reading a number of times people who were in car accidents or you know, bizarre accidents that they should have probably passed away from or succumbed to the injuries, that kind of thing. And there's this intervention of this person. They come in, they're moved, they're put into a safer place.
Right.
And then when they go to thank the individual or they ask, can you please go thank the person's gone. And I've heard that so many times, so many times. And that may have been maybe the story that kind of got me to connect with you because I haven't spoke with anyone yet on this show, I believe, that has had that kind of incident happen. Um, and I guess one of the reasons I would bring it up is because if you were to think of anybody, if you were driving, let's say, and you're driving down a highway and you see an accident, someone rolls over, and you get out of your car and you go, oh my gosh, and you're able to bring these people to the side. You're not going to just grab your coffee, text your husband or whoever, or friend, and say, "Hey, I'll be there," and just hop in your car and just take off.
No,
You're so usually wound up. You need to stick around to see, is this person going to be okay? Are they going to are they going to get into the helicopter, whatever it is?
right,
So it
right.
sounds like that person just left, as what I hear often. And not only that, he or she, sorry, was in physical matters because you're saying that he used his teeth to
Yeah.
remove the ring off of your hand.
And what's
Yeah.
interesting is I can remember the face, but I can't remember any of the body. So I can remember the eyes, I can remember the darker hair, and then the hands coming and taking this off, but it's like everything else is a blur.
Hmm.
So that's interesting to me too.
Yeah. I mean, one of those could be the amount of
Trauma.
trauma that you were going through at the
Yeah.
time. It'd be interesting to see if other people, because do you remember seeing the bodies of the other passengers at all?
Of my friends?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So your
Yes.
trauma wasn't so extreme that you were still recognizing them and seeing them, yet this individual that removed you from the car, you don't recall. So that kind of
Yeah,
answers the
I'm kind of
question.
one of those that the adrenaline kicks in. It's like, okay, I got to make sure everybody's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
like my other friends in major trauma, and I'm like, it's okay, it's all right, we're gonna be fine. We'll get a hold of your kids, like all of that. So it was like I was the one making sure everybody was, you know, in their right mind. It's
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
So I know that I was there,
Hmm.
but yet that could have happened. There's still trauma happening within my own self thinking, but it was like it just disappeared. I didn't even see him walking.
Do you remember feeling the energy of the person?
No, everything happened so fast. I was just amazed that this person was there. Like, where did he come from at the door? And that he could effortlessly open it. Like, if you
Mhm.
saw pictures of this car and how the whole doors were just crunched, and even you can see the bar in it,
Wow.
like how it opened, I have no idea.
Was there a calmness about him, or was he
Very calmness. I was like,
okay?
okay, all right,
Hmm.
we're gonna be okay.
And I mean, and that's a big piece there too, because a lot of people, even though a lot of people do save people from traumatic moments, there's generally quite a bit of hysteria going on. There's kind of this, you know, so to know that, and I asked you that question because that has come up in other
Right.
experiences I've read where it's like this general calmness, like an assurance that you're fine. Like it's like, don't worry,
Yeah, I just
there's
felt
no need to worry.
immediately like, okay,
Yeah.
everything's pretty good. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. Okay. And that incident, so it stopped there because you obviously survived that and your friends or the passengers survived and you were fine, but it changed your direction a little bit and it got you more into spirituality.
that was
And
my first shift. I call them
mhm.
shifts. That was like,
Okay.
wake up,
Mm.
okay, shift, and start to dabble in reading books and seeing what's going on. And yeah, so that happened with that first NDE.
Do you look back at all and see that that was any kind of wake up call for you?
Oh, it was getting me back on my path. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So it
Hmm.
was kind of like a let's put you back on the train track that you're supposed
Yeah,
to be on
a big
because you're kind of going,
awareness.
yeah,
Let's wake her up. Let's
yeah.
wake her up.
Like you weren't doing anything terrible in your life,
I
but
think they just knew that it was the right timing. Like
mm,
that, let's start opening this up for her.
okay.
She's ready.
Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. So this went on, when did the next experience happen? I guess we'll go to that.
The
Did you,
other one happened in 2000, and I was in another car accident. But this time, my car was totally, in a turn bay, just sitting, waiting to cross in the other street to get into a subdivision. Okay. So
hmm.
I'm just sitting there, not thinking, not having any premonitions. And before I know it, I am out of my body. I am in another dimension. And now I am looking down and I am watching the car accident happen.
Mm.
And I felt this beautiful energy behind me. And I can remember hearing, "Are you ready?" I knew what that meant. Are you ready to be here in this dimension? And I said, no, no. I'm a single mom of three. My kids need me. And at that moment, I saw a truck carrying like tractor equipment behind him coming at my car. And I said, but I'm not going to survive that. That it's going to go right on top of me. I'm done. And right when I said that, I was now into my once was a four-door Honda
Mhm.
into a two-door. It was crunched. All the windows were broken out. Everything in the car was out in the street. My seatbelt broke, and I was now in the back seat in a little part of the car with a mouthful of glass. And a police officer was at my window, and another gentleman was at my window. And they're like, ma'am, are you okay? We were trying to get this man that was in a diabetic seizure off the road. He was going about 80 miles an hour, and he hit you.
Wow.
And so he just, boom, without me knowing, took me into oncoming traffic. Then he looks at the gentleman, and I'm just trying to get the glass out of my mouth and what's just happening here. I'm very, very confused. And I hear this man say to the police officer, he goes, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "No, I'm not." He goes, "I should have killed her. But at the last second, something took my steering wheel and put me into oncoming traffic. I don't know how that would have happened." And when he said that, it was an immediate download like, oh, I saw that.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I'm
Wow.
back. Right.
Yeah.
And so ambulances were coming, helicopter flight for life were coming for the gentleman. It was became chaotic. And I never saw the man driving the car again. And I was taken to the hospital. And as I sat in the hospital, I went, wait a minute. I heard spirit. I was in another dimension. Huh. There's more here that exists than I know. And this started to open my mediumship up. If I could hear spirit then, can I still hear spirit now? And that just was the shift to beginning, okay, let's do this mediumship, let's test it with friends. And then eventually I went to the Windbridge, it was called the Veritas Center at the time, with Dr. Gary Schwartz and Dr. Julie Beischel, and got tested in
Oh,
their
wow.
lab. And then from there, now I'm with Julie Beischel at the Windbridge lab. And I should say Windbridge Center. So the reason I wanted to go there was because I want to know, is this real? Am I really connecting? And have science have my back. If science has my back, then I know that I can do this for others,
Mm.
right? It was kind of like, okay, I needed proof, right? And so you can go on the Windbridge .org website and you can see the protocol that we had to pass. It was a quadruple blind experiment. You can't debunk them. And it's pretty phenomenal, but
Wow.
it was quite the journey. And I know Spirit guided me to Dr. Gary Schwartz to talk about books. He has the Afterlife experiment book, and I was helping a man doing a mediumship reading, and his this book fell down right on his coffee table as I'm doing the session. He's like, "Oh, I guess this book's for you." So I went home and I read it. That's how I got to know Gary Schwartz. At the back of Gary Schwartz's book, he talks about this book by Susie Smith called The Afterlife Codes. I'm like, I'm so connected to her. Why am I so connected to her? Now I know those two know each other. So I was like, you know what? I need to get in touch with Gary. I just need to. So I'm going to send an email and I'm going to say, you know what? I feel very connected to Susie Smith. And so I just feel like I have a message. I knew she passed. I have a message for her to you. Well, that was like a light bulb that went off for them.
Mm.
Before I knew it, Julie Beischel was at my house, sitting on my couch. She's like, Deborah, I have to kind of tell you something. I said, what? She goes, well, you kind of sent that email about Susie Smith that you had a message from her. And I said, yeah. She goes, well, she's the founder of our lab. And she said that she would bring the mediums that we're supposed to test, and they would say that they had a message from her.
Oh, wow.
Right? That's what I said. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I was pushed
Mm.
by her to
Hmm.
say those words in that email. And that's where mediumship just developed.
See, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I was gonna say, I mean, I was gonna say this before you even told us that story, was that, when the other vehicle was altered, the trajectory of which way they're gonna go onto oncoming traffic, and you're in this other state, it really shows that there's something else being orchestrated. Like we're here, right? And here I am, and I'm grabbing my tea, and I'm doing all this stuff, right? I'm like I'm an entity doing this stuff, but there's more going on that's
Around us.
working around. the favor of our life and those types of things that we don't really ever really take um, notice of, even though it's happening. I take more notice of it now. So since I've started the show and had my own things developing, I'll say it that way, I sense things all the time. I had this, and I'll share this for the first time. I haven't shared this before, but this just because this has just happened just the other day. So I've always been around numbers. Numbers are very strong around me. Even as a kid, I remember I would see the 1111 and all these different things all the time. And when my grandmother passed, who was like my rock, she passed away, and I was notified about it at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And so numbers have always been really in my life. And just the other week, I heard someone um, who said when they see those numbers, they say thank you. They say
I do
thank you.
too.
And
Hmm.
I'd never heard that before. I know that when I see the numbers, I feel like I'm kind of in an alignment. And when I don't for a long time, I actually, once I see them again, I go, oh my goodness, yeah, I wasn't seeing them, and I felt a little off. Something felt off-putting, and now I feel like I'm back, and now I'm seeing them
Yeah.
again. So just in the last week or so, maybe 2 weeks, every time I'd see the number, I'd say thank you, and then sure enough, that same day, I'd see another one. I'd see a 111. Thank you. I'd see 333. Thank you. One, two. And it was getting to a point I'm like, I'm seeing them everywhere. Like, and people be like, oh, that's because you put it in your brain and you're, no, I'm seeing them on
Yeah.
license plates. I'm
Yes.
seeing them on receipts. I'm seeing them, and these aren't, that's not the same as looking at a clock because my brain is thinking it's a certain time.
Correct.
It's
It's showing
actually
up.
it's showing up because I'm appreciating it and thanking it. And so
Right.
this has just started happening and it's in alignment with everything else going on. I sense things in a different way. And I've just started to be going back to what I was saying before is that you become more aware of the things around you that are kind of falling in place. And you know, and when you're not in that awareness, it's life. I find life is a little bit harder. It's almost easier to know
Yes.
that there's things working itself out in whatever way it's going to, good and bad, right?
I always believe that even through hard times, like everything's going to work out. Like everything's going to be okay. Might not be the way you want it, but it will be okay. And if you just surrender the control and you let it be, and you just say, I'm safe right now. I'm going to walk through this with gratitude. Even it could suck and you don't want to walk through it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have no choice. And you know what? You're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I see seeing those numbers, doesn't it make you feel like, okay, they got me. There's
Yeah.
somebody with me. I'm not alone. They're showing me. So
Yeah.
that's for others to know that if they start seeing these numbers too, they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, you feel kind of surrounded and protected. Not protected, but you feel like your family's there. Like not that I
Yeah,
don't
like they
appreciate
have
my
your
family.
back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something that everything is working out the way it's supposed to. So just have faith. Going back to the faith
Faith.
thing. So have the faith that everything's moving in the right direction. But because that's exactly the way this worked out with this, going and getting tested and all these things. That is really fascinating because that's the way I would be. If I hope to never have an NDE. I've always said if I have one, I don't know. I'd be, I'd be very hard for me to want to jump back in, even though I love everyone around me. So I do have, I have my fourth child on the way. So, I mean,
Oh,
I
congrats.
got reasons to be here, right? And so, but, you know, I do feel for people sometimes when they have the NDs and they come back because they've felt this other realm, and
I didn't feel bad coming back, and I'll explain that in my third NDE,
okay.
but I know I'm not afraid to die.
Mm,
And I can tell everybody that's listening through car accidents, through sickness, we don't feel the pain when we pass. Our body might be going through it, but I didn't feel pain. I was out before that accident,
mm,
right? We're taken, boom. So if a loved one of yours, anyone that's listening, that they had a horrific car accident, please have peace knowing that they were already out before impact. And when my third ND, when I was sick, very, very sick, you want me to go into that?
yeah, absolutely. We can move into that. Absolutely.
Okay, so I ended up getting really sick and I was at Mayo Clinic and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I was to the point where my older three children were off either out in college or out of the house, and my younger daughter, she was in third grade. And there was no quality of life for me. I was just laying in my bed day after day. I couldn't eat. If I ate, it was like having going through labor pains. A little bit of cracker, a little bit of water. I was in extreme pain. I lost the ability to have my bowels. It was just the quality of my life was just not good. It's hard for me even to say this today, to think that I was asking God to take me because, I have my children. But at that point, you just surrender. You feel you're done. And I couldn't give anything to my family. I was in my bedroom. So I can remember praying and praying, just take me. I'm ready. Just take me. One morning, spiritual surgeons showed up in my room. Now, being a medium, that's not going to scare me. I see spirit all the time. But I'm like, okay, these are spiritual surgeons. I see them with the masks on. What are they going to do? And they start to work on me. I remember them cutting into my abdomen and it was being really painful. Like I really felt it. There was no denying it. I was like screaming in pain and no one else was home at the time. And I was like, how am I going to get through this? I know I must have to go through this because God sent the spiritual surgeons here for me to see this for some reason. I have no
Right.
idea why, but I've got to remove my mind from this. Because if I don't, then I can't go through it. Then what? Right? So I remember closing my eyes and just taking a deep breath like this. And as I breathed in or breathed out, just my spirit, my soul left. I could feel myself lifting up and out. And I can remember like going, oh, this feels fabulous. I'm not in any pain.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I'll stay here. I'll stay in this spot for a while. And then I started floating up higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And I came to a spot that was like just all white, white everywhere around me. It'd be like standing on clouds, nothing around me. And I'm like, okay, now what? And I thought maybe this is just where I need to stay. Well, I saw this beam of light coming towards me and coming towards me, and it took a formation of who I say is God. And I saw him holding me. So I'm like, oh, he has my body. And this time I'm like, I must be really sick because he's carrying me. And we didn't have to have a conversation. We just, in our minds, knew what we were communicating. Okay. And
Mhm.
so I call him he, she, source, divine, turned around and started walking, and I knew to follow. And we came to a spot where he placed my body on a beam of light. Next to that beam of light was a beautiful glass coffin. It looked like Snow White's glass coffin. I always say, like, oh, can I just touch the inside? Can I see what it's like? And I'm like, oh, Deborah, you might not want to do that. Maybe this has other meaning, right?
Mm.
So he told me to follow, and we were going into this dome. It was just a round, like igloo dome. And I said, why do we have to go in there? He said, because it shields the universe from hearing what I have to say to you. I'm like, okay. So I sit down. It looks like just at a regular table. Once again, I feel the loving being behind me. I am feeling the most intense love, safetyness, healthy. I am in bliss. This is a wonderful space to be in. Now I look down at the table and there's a stack of papers, but it's opened to one page. And I'm told this is my lifeline contract. I'm like, oh, okay. And I never flipped forward to see what was coming, and I never looked back to see what it said. I just looked at that one page. And on that page, I was told I was on borrowed time. And so I had a new mission to go back. And there were several words that were on there. There was like health, prosperity, voice. And I can remember arguing with the word health and saying, I don't want to go back just for health. It has to say healthy. And it immediately changed. It was like watching it just before your eyes, the LY come in.
Wow.
And so I said, oh, voice, that must be mediumship. That's easy. That's good. I can continue doing that mission. Okay. So I had to sign the line. And he said, remember the state 12112. All numbers are reversible, and so is this. And so I also felt God was signing the line, saying, we're taking an oath together. So I asked if I could stay, if I could see my love mode. My parents were on the other side. He's like, nope, this isn't the dimension for you to see them. You won't want to go back. Nope, you have to go back now. I go, I can't even stay for a little longer because I felt so healthy. Nope,
Mm,
it's time for you to go back. And when I went back, I can remember floating back, almost like I'm on my back, just floating down, down, down. And when I got into my body, I can remember it feeling like an air mattress blowing up and me going back into the body. Like, okay, I'm in. And then all of a sudden having to go, taking a deep breath, like my first breath again, and going, am I the same person? What just happened? And the spiritual surgeons were gone. And I was like, I gotta write this all down. I was feeling better, not 100% better, but I was feeling better. And so I took note of what was happening. I continued my mediumship, but I noticed that as I was taking note for my own self, going through my own healing process, journaling, let's see, give me what am I holding on to? Seeing any trauma that I went through when I was younger or whatnot, and just going through the process. And as I was going through that, my body was starting to heal. But what I was learning and what God was teaching me is how I was going to be the healer I am today and how I was going to apply the skills that I was learning through Him, that I would be His vessel and voice to be the healer who I am today. So now, as a healer, I can see spirit. I use my mediumship abilities. I see spiritual surgeons come in the room. They work on my body. I feel the pain just like I did that day, but it becomes undeniable when they're doing it. But I don't take it on when it's over, it's done. But what's so fascinating about this is I might not know anything about you, right?
mm,
And I'm told everything you're dealing with. And sometimes people want me to place in my prayers prior to a healing session. I want to connect with this loved one, or I want to put my things that I'm struggling with. Please give this in your prayers. And then the way I pray is I read it verbatim how they give it to me. But then I go back and saying, thank you. Thank you, God, for healing the cancer. Thank you, God, for healing, the trauma. Thank you, God, for going to the root causes. I'm starting to give gratitude for everything that's on that paper. And if it's nothing's on that paper, I'm giving gratitude. Thank you, God, for healing everything and all. Thank you. And I go into the intention that there's a miracle here, removing my humanist side. If I hold on to that, then I'm going to be thinking, this is impossible.
right.
So you move the expectations, you let go. And when I go into a session, that's when all of it comes through. And I just am voicing it and everything comes through. And there's been times where I'm like, it's like watching a movie. Sometimes we see a loved one come into the room. Sometimes we're taking to another dimension where they're having a conversation, like I had a conversation.
Mm,
They're embraced with love. I believe the healing is all out of love. I believe God is love and the energy is love. But I can say that some of the stuff that I witness and I hear, you just can't make it up. Like it's
mm,
like there's no way that person went through that. I can remember one of my first ones, a lady was really sick. She didn't even think that she was going to make it. And these are all done remote. So she was in Texas at the time. And she's in her own sacred space, and I'm doing the session. And I get this vision of her standing there, and then her. little self standing there, her child, like her inner child.
Hmm.
And now I see what this inner child went through. Like, oh, your mother's sick. Your dad is angry. He's super angry. He's taking it all out on you. And he grabs her arm, he takes her outside, and he shoots her puppies.
Mm.
I'm like, no, that couldn't really happen. But you're hearing this. So then he comes back and says, you don't hold that shame. You didn't cause him to do that. That was for him to do. I want you to heal yourself from that deep, deep pain that you've been holding on all these years. So when I'm done with the session and I email it to them and they are like, I'm listening and I'm feeling the same things you're feeling at the same time, and we're not even on the call. But when you went to the part where that happened to me as a child, I forgot about that. But yeah, my dad did do that. And guess what? She healed from her cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was beautiful. So
That's amazing.
it's, I never know. Every day there's something different that I'm going to face
Hmm.
emotionally, physically, spiritually. And sometimes it comes in a form that we don't want. I can remember doing a session for a woman that was like, oh, I want this cancer gone. I just want this woman, come on, we're going to do this. And she felt the cancer was gone after the session. She's like, it's gone. But we went to her childhood and she had childhood trauma of saying she wasn't worthy. She was
Mm.
ugly, she was fat, all of that. That was healed. And she came back to me and said, that was more important for me to heal all of that than the cancer because I've been holding it onto this for so many years that if I do pass, I'm not taking this with me.
Mm.
So she had 2 weeks of being completely healthy, thinking life was just perfect, and she passed peacefully. And so it came in a different form. So that's why I say miracles might not come in the form in which you're looking for, but be open to everything and all because it might be something even more that you need than just
Hmm.
what you write, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm doing these sessions like this, I just feel so blessed. Thank you for allowing me to see this. Thank you for allowing me to do this. And then I'll always say, this was a great session. And then you wait to hear back. And it's just like, oh,
Right,
yeah.
because that's the exciting part, because
My
then
awe,
that's
yeah.
your verification.
It's
This,
my awe to say,
Mhm.
thank you, God. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
right? This is why we do it. And there's, I can't heal everyone the way they want it. I'm not God, but I believe that it's all in God's way and divine timing. Like for me, I wasn't healed instantly. So sometimes healing's a process and it's going to integrate within you in time, but you have to continue to give gratitude and stand in your faith and not give power to the illness.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, I ended up getting cancer later too. I'm going, are you kidding me?
Wow.
But cancer became my best teacher. Now I can hold people's hands to say, I know what you're feeling. I
Hmm.
can do the walk with you. But I've learned that anybody that's going through any illness, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, don't own the name or the title. Don't say, I have.
Mm.
That's just a piece of you. You are so much more, and we are such powerful beings that, that's where it all starts. Start loving yourself. Don't fight the cancer, love it, and let it be an opportunity for a lesson and growth. And sometimes we're meant to pass, even though, like, they have the cancer and we think we healed it, and all of a sudden they pass later. Why? Why? We had it healed. Why? Well, they had a gift of time,
Mm.
right? Or it was they got something in a different form. So it's not up to me, but I am grateful for how each and every person is touched in their own way
Hmm.
and in the divine way.
That's beautiful. The other thing that came to me just right now, well, I don't know whether I call these downloads or what they are. I'm just getting involved with this stuff. Um, was the sense of when you went over, you knew you were coming back. You had a sense of you were coming back. You sat with God. It seems that's the way I interpreted it. And God didn't want or didn't feel it was right to have you on the other planes or the other dimensions where your past relatives were, likely because, like I just kind of joked about, that it'd be harder to come back because you see the love, you feel the love, and you know you're still existing, you know you're in this place. So in his whatever knowingness, knew that that wouldn't be good for you, it wouldn't serve you, and then you came back. The same can be said, and this is a hard thing to say. I've lost very important people in my life, um, but we don't know what decisions made by that individual when they pass. And if they pass, this is what came to me, is that just like you were to go back, had you not made that decision, you wouldn't be here. And then we'd say, why? But we don't know that you may have, your higher self may have made that decision too. I'm sure there is kind of a
Mhm.
divinity around what God has planned for you and things. But just like you've said, things can shift and change. Things
Right.
can your storyline can shift and change. And it almost seemed like when you came back this third time after the NDE, almost like you were you, but you were a different form of you. Maybe a piece of you that was you had kind of released, but you're now
Right.
back with this different sense of beingness of who you're now to be until the the rest of your life type thing. That's what I took
100%.
from it.
It's heightened everything. Everything was just heightened to like beyond what I could even humanly understand.
Yeah.
And so go back to somebody passing. I lost my father to suicide.
Hmm.
So learning that and going all the whys and then saying, you know what? I don't need to know the whys. I just need to know that he's okay right now. And he was suffering. That was his exit point. And it's okay. And I learned a lot from him, that it's just an illness, that they survive too. And so it's been quite the journey, but I've learned along the way and I can apply everything that I've learned in helping others. And that's what I feel my mission is to do here today.
Can we heal? Can we heal while here in the same sense? Where's this question coming from? Can we? Hmm. There's been plenty of people who've had NDEs and they go over and they can sense the healing that's going to happen, or they go through this thing and they come back. Perfect example is someone like Anita Morjani, or someone who's had
Right.
some extreme. There's got to be a way we can do that while here instead of having to have an actual NDE.
Correct.
And
Yes.
would that be through maybe spiritual development, finding like what kind of, I guess I wanted to come to you and say, yes, working with people like you obviously can harness that and open it up. But just for people listening to get kind of a first step, is there things people can be doing in their day to day? The thing to me that keeps coming to me is forgiveness. You talked about a few things where, you know, we're holding on to traumas, past traumas, and things like that. And I've had them too. And sometimes you have to have forgiveness there to let go of that thing that you're just
Yeah,
gravitating to. And I wondered if you had any insight on that.
there are several things I deal with a lot. One is we judge ourselves so much. And I've always heard every time in the sessions, why do you judge yourself? I do not judge you. You did what you did, you understand what you did, and move forward from it.
Mm,
Let it go. The other one is shame. When you have abuse, somebody's abusing you over and over and over, you have those triggers, right? And you start to feel less than. And if anybody has had that, try to envision the person that did it to you and see yourself handing it back to them and say, I'm done holding this right now. It's too much for me. I'm now going to be the victor and not the victim anymore,
mm,
right? Hand it back. And so that's one way. And then there's just there's the judgment, there's anxiety, of course, there's the shame, the feeling of not enough. And I think too is self-love, right? We always want to be something more and we're not loving ourselves. And I think Love is the answer. Love helps heal. And, embrace yourself. How do you embrace yourself with love? Simple, just a simple hug. You can hug yourself every morning and every night. I do it, and once you start to do it, it feels really good. It feels almost like somebody's hugging you, but it's really you. And your
Mm-hmm.
soul feels it. It's like, good night, Deborah. It was an awesome day. And say it,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think those are tools that can help heal you. I also say don't give power to the illness. Anytime a doctor gives you a diagnosis, um, look at it and say, okay, challenge on. How many times do people say that they were given 2 months and they lived 2 years because they weren't going to own it,
Right.
right? So when we get an illness that is incurable, do you think God created that title for that illness?
Mm.
That's how I've always heard it. Did I create that? No. Did I help create medicine? Yes. Am I here to help the impossible as possible? Yes. So just hang on to, never lose hope and maybe you have it, but it's not going to come out as worse as it could have.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's going to stay dormant.
Mm-hmm.
Just try not to have that fear and that power of, you know what? I had cancer, I got rid of cancer, but they said it could come back.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then now in the back of your mind, like it's going to come back. I wonder where it's going to come back. And you're
Right.
allowing it to come back, right? Because you're thinking, they're saying, okay, well, if he thinks it's coming back, maybe we need to like go back or
Mm.
let the body produce it again. The mind is very, very positive. So if we can just take all the what ifs, the negative thoughts, and turn the what ifs into positive.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is just walking with an attitude of gratitude,
Mm.
and the kindness. Kindness goes a long way. When you smile, if somebody tells you like, wow, you look great today, or you end up smiling, you're like, wow, that was really nice. It goes a long way. Do it for yourself too.
I love all that. And especially in the climate of the world and the things that go on right now, there's always that being human. This isn't easy. This isn't easy. Everybody listening, we've all come here to be on the same journey at this exact same time. And how amazing is that, first of all? We're all
Yeah.
listening in or talking right now. But the second thing is that we came here and it's a journey. It's a human experience. And so I love you touched on so many things. I'm always trying to be an optimist with everything. And sometimes it's not easy. I'm not perfect, definitely, and I go my ups and my downs, and you're always trying to speak your truth. You have these
Yeah.
ideas and then you speak it. But it's beautiful that you've been working with people this way. How do people get in touch with you? Do you have like a website or anything that you generally have people
I
connect with you and
do.
sharing?
That's the best way because then I have your contact. So it's goldenmiracles.com. And go ahead and go, to my YouTubes, listen to testimonials. I have people that'll tell their stories. Instagram, I put those on. Your podcast will be on there. It's a way to let people hear, the backstory, what other people went through. And I try to give kind of inspirational quotes and things too. But it's, I think my mission's, to spread love, healing, and to never lose hope.
Hmm.
And that anybody can do that. We all have that ability. Just tap into it.
And on the website too, do they have your book? It's called Proof of Miracles. Do they have access to getting it through the site?
Yes.
Okay.
Through my website. Yes, I'm an author of 6 books. I did write one
Oh,
for
wow.
anybody that has an illness. I wrote a book on my cancer, all my prayers and everything that I went through because I didn't know what the ending was going to be. And I used to call it my beast. And at the end, I saw my beauty and my beast.
Oh, nice. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a lot there for them to see. I also do a once a month, the first Tuesday of every month. I have a group that's free. It's on Zoom. It's called Army for Love. I was told to do this when I had cancer. It's a platform where people can come and share anything they're going through emotionally, physically, or spiritually. And we gather globally and we hold each other and there's no judgment and things that people say. And at the end of the session, I do a mini healing for everybody. And we have witnessed miracles happen right in front of us.
Really? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah,
You can
it's
even go on my website. If you go into the Army for Love tab, you scroll down, there's a little link that says Giovanni. And Giovanni tells his story of what happened in one of these Army for Loves.
that's amazing. You're doing amazing things. I always end the episode with one it's a deep question, but it can be simple or it could be complicated. But I don't think it'll be complicated for you because you've had some experiences. And it's just simply if you look at us as a whole, human beings, why do we come and do this here? If the afterlife is what it is, what is our reasoning for coming here and living and doing this day-to-day thing we do?
I think there's several times I've connected with loved ones. I've seen babies that will come and then decide not to come last minute, right? And they have told me, well, I already experienced the love that I was looking for. I felt it inside, and that's all
Mm,
I needed. So we're coming to have an experience of maybe something that we never did before in the last life. Um, where we might be coming to say, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to be that person that's going to spread the word. I want to just go down and experience what it's like to be in a human suit.
mm,
Or I had one. This was it kind of chokes me up. A mother lost her son to cancer, and he lived for a long time cancer free. We got him cancer free for months, and then he was taken. And he had a conversation with God, but none of us could know what it was, but we knew that he was having it. He was a very, very wise boy. And the mom couldn't understand, like, that's so brutal. Why would you heal him, then take him from me?
mm.
Right. And it was hard. And so we ended up connecting with the boy. And he said, well, you and I planned this. She goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, in my past life, I was the one that was the mother, and you were the one that left me. And now you know what I felt like. And it just kind of made it like, I get it. Not that it was easier, but that they were able to say, it resonated. You know how you were saying, like, you just have this knowingness inside, like, that's true.
Mhm.
And when I was connecting with him, he had like a stutter, and I was stuttering. It was his voice coming through. There was no denying. And so I was like, why am I doing that? What's going on? And I'm saying that in my own mind. But
Mhm.
then when it was all done and listening back, it was completely his voice.
So in a sense, you were channeling a message
100%
to him.
channeling. Yeah. So
Wow.
like she couldn't deny it on so many levels. So we don't know why, but there's something going on up there higher than what we know, and we're making some of these choices, and sometimes it's our first time. I mean, you've heard people say, oh, that person's probably this is their first lifetime here, you can tell.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, they got a lot to learn, but
Right.
it's okay. I'm not judging them for that, but you can just see it,
Hmm.
and you just embrace it and try to dabble and teach a little at a time. But sometimes people are just not open to it either. And that's okay. I am not here to make people believers. That's not my job.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I love how you kind of just broke it down into different reasonings. Like there's different reasons for our incarnating, right? So it's just, it's one of those questions I told myself when I started the podcast, I would be asking every person. I mean, I have people who come on here and they're not really even talking spiritually. And I ask them that question and they go, hold on, I need a second. That's a big question because they've never really contemplated it until the
No,
show. And
no.
I
I had
go,
to like,
maybe that's part of my purpose is to bring that question up just a little bit. Sometimes it's good to just think about it. It doesn't mean you have to have the answers, but to just contemplate it a little bit. And Yeah.
Do we all really know the truth, the answers? Like,
No.
do we know everything? No. And that's why I go back to the science, the proving of the mediumship, the evidential, the healings that are coming through, and then them emailing me and saying, there's no way you knew this, or, you know, they attach a reading to a healing so that they can connect with a loved one at the same time and have that connection. I've had people feel their daughters or see their children or their mother comes through and they actually feel the embrace. They
Hmm.
smell them, they hear them, and I am saying exactly what they're hearing. It's just like I'm telling you, I constantly like, you can't make this up, just can't make this up.
Right.
So there is a higher power happening all around us all the time. Know you're not alone. And when something like your tire pops and you're like, oh my gosh, why did that happen? Try to see the blessing that I'm okay. There was
Mm.
no accident. This isn't fun. But try to see, what's good about what's bad's happening.
Yeah. And that's
That's
hard.
hard. That's
That's
really
hard.
hard.
That goes back to the idea of awareness. Your awareness has to be on all the time because when we're not aware and we're just unconscious of our actions, we're just kind of doing our day to day. We can get caught up in the human and we get caught up in it. So being
Well, I also
aware.
want people to know too that emotions are real. So
Hmm.
you have to have you get mad, you get mad.
That's right.
You get
Yeah.
sad, you get sad.
Yeah.
Those you have to feel them. They are
Mm.
real. Just walk through them. If you can walk through them saying, okay, I'm just gonna breathe. I just got angry. I'm mad, I'm pissed, it's okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. And then go, maybe by the time the tire is fixed and you get home, go, okay, that wasn't that bad. It all kind of worked out smoothly. You
Right.
know,
Well, there's plenty of times in life where something bad happens, bad, and then it leads to this, this, and this. And then when you look back and you go, oh, hadn't that bad thing not happened, this, and this wouldn't have happened. And this has been the greatest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
yeah, that's how cancer was. It ended up being a really big gift for me, even though it was not fun at all.
Right.
And there was, I learned a lot, but you're right. I think it's about timing of when you see that blessing too.
Hmm.
It might not happen right away. It might take a couple years before you even notice the blessing from it. It's okay.
A quick bonus question. Did it all feel real when you were on the other side, when you had the dimensional shift? Did it feel as real as you and I talking right now, or did it feel more dreamlike?
100% real. 100% real. I just felt like, yes, I'm here. And so now that I get to take people to those dimensions, and spiritual journeys, and they're either going to envision it in their mind or they're going to actually feel like they're out of body. If they can just relax and be and take in what I'm saying, they've felt them in another dimension. They see what I'm seeing and they're feeling what I'm feeling and they're feeling the embrace and the surrounds them. And it's so magical. So the fact that I was taken to this space and now get to take people to this space, it doesn't get any better.
You're doing amazing work. I'm always, curious if people felt like it was real, whatever real is. I don't know if we all know what real is anymore, but it's just this idea of what we are. We wake up and we're conscious, we're aware, and if that feeling feels real, if it
It
feels
hits
like
you to
that.
the core of who you are that there's
Mm,
no denying it. Like
mm.
it's like when I said I had to take note, oh, I don't want to forget about it. Like I was really going to forget that. That really did.
Right?
Like, right? But at that, my human's
Right.
like, oh God, I can't forget all these moments. There's no way I was going to forget that. That was just too magical and too real,
Mm.
too profound.
Thank you so much for the conversation. Hey, this has been awesome. I have tons of different things I'd like to ask, but for time's sake, we'll close it up. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking. And
Maybe we
just,
can do it again and we'll continue part two or
I'd love
something.
it. I'd love it.
Would that be fun? Yeah.
There definitely would be areas that we could go down further. I also turn to the audience and say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe, so you can keep following our message here at Soul Inspired, and we can keep getting amazing guests like Debra on. And I would encourage anyone that's interested in the work she does to check out her website. So thank you so much, Debra, for being on again.
I am just really grateful that you trusted your guidance when you heard me. So we have the connection. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
So